of the drivers in tow were drivers that were saying that they were practicing and using that race as a test session for here tonight. The IMSA series finale here on RCI TV, our very first inaugural season of sports car racing here on the channel and iRacing. Hello, everybody, and welcome in. Jesse Lee joining you on commentary tonight with Ash Bibby behind the cameras for the lauded season finale. Still a lot to decide in the championship points. Some of the title races have already been decided, but a lot of the final podium positions have not. This is a sunny yet wet afternoon here in Sebring, Florida, just south of Orlando. Hope everybody's doing well out there tonight. And we thank you, of course, for being with us. First little update of the night is there's no Piotr Dominicus in the field tonight. Apparently they've caught the flu and are not racing here this evening. Get better, Newser. How about that? Hope you feel better, buddy, and we see you on a track soon. Qualifying underway in the session. Qualifying underway, 3 minutes left of said qualifying session of the 10 minutes allotted to them. Of course, they get an hour practice in this session and a 10-minute qualifying session. And looks like Luca Filippi on provisional pole for the time being over Lindner by 2.4 seconds. It's frankly not even close. Everybody out there on the dry tire. It was wet, raining prior to the 1 hour practice session. It wasn't raining in the practice session. It's been progressively getting drier to the point now where there's only a few damp patches and puddles out there on the racetrack. Juranek goes to provisional pole in GTP, a 45.754. That was answered by a couple of cars. Sindelar gets on the top three step here with 46.1. Juranek has come down pit lane. Kampferger on provisional pole in the LMP2 class. Ryan Leach, who you may recall was in the GTP class a week or so ago, well, they have, I think they signed out and rejoined in the wrong category, so they're in a LMP2 car instead of a GTP, but they've gone second quickest nonetheless behind Kampferger. Tom Bryant is third. Ruoff in the pole position in the Porsche for GTD at 202.5. Meads in second at a 203.2. And you have Rowe in a 204.8. Those are top three there with Miller and Macha, the other cars, to take time. Just about a minute or so left of qualifying. And I have been joined by a very special, I wouldn't call him a guest. He kind of blends in with the furniture around here, but been joined by a co-commentator at last. His name, Les Stevenson.
Good evening. Good evening. How are we doing? It's been a long time since I've been in the booth, and I'm really looking forward to this, Jesse, and thanks for having me.
Certainly is. Les Stevenson, of course, from endurance fame, has done some of the long hours with me at the end of last year. And, of course, this is sort of like an endurance race, Les. It's not a 60-minute race. This is an 80-minute affair here this evening, so a little bit longer. It's the series finale. I got a question for you, though, as we come to the end here of quali. What do you think about this GTD category that we have here? Of course, they're just GT3s, aren't they? But in particular, the brand parity that we end up having in a class like this. What do you think about multi-class racing in the lower class?
I mean, I absolutely love multi-class racing, as you probably already know, Jesse, but to most of the viewers, maybe not. But yeah, the GT category, or sorry, the GTD category is definitely my favourite out of the bunch. I mean, the GTPs are impressive, and obviously, as you know, the LMP2s are rapid. But no, for me, it's I just love the muscling around of a big, heavy GT car around a race circuit to get the best out of it. But I'm relatively new to iRacing, and I had a stab at Sebring. Unfortunately, it didn't pay off. The wet stuff came down, and I really suffered. I didn't even know that rain had even arrived in iRacing yet. So it was a bit of a shock to me, but it was a great event anyway. Like I said, it was a bit unfortunate for myself, but I'm looking forward to this finale.
Certainly the case. Qualifying just finishing up here. Saranac has taken pole in the GTP category. It's a 45.754. Good enough for that spot over Felipe, Sindelar, Lindner, Daly, Lepp, and Octane. The 7 cars taking time in the top category. Peter Roche come in very late in that session and snuck in for pole for LMP2, a 48.6. And that was pole position over Camfiger and Tom Bryant, the top 3. Leach, Donaldson, Heilman, Leidner, Edwards, and Deister. I thought I was seeing double there for a second, folks. Are your 9 cars in LMP2. Ruoff is in pole for GTD, a 202.5 in the Porsche. Again, Mead in second place in the Mercedes, a 202.6. Rowe did a 202.6 as well, albeit a slightly slower 202.6. Behind them, Miller, Macha, Merchant, and Ethan Jenkins sneaking in here in the final moments.
Yeah, certainly a close session there, and we can see some of the big names up there, and that we're sort of accustomed to nowadays. But no, it's a great qualifying, and I know we shouldn't have favourites, Jesse, but when you see the number 46 out there, it's I've got to root for him. But yeah, and and it's nice to see some of the good old returning names. When we see Ted Edwards there in P8 with a good session there. A little bit off the pole, but I'm sure that could be made back up during the race. And we got the GTDs doing 202s. I mean, that's what dreams are made of, Jesse.
Yeah, it's going to be really close. Of course, if you want the weather forecast, now's as good a time as any. Of course, we mentioned that it was raining prior to the 1-hour practice session, and they had to deal with that throughout the entire session. Got a good bit of wet running and intermediate running. They don't have wet and intermediate tires, of course, but the track conditions, of course, are what we're speaking of. And, of course, dodging puddles still in qualifying quite a bit. The track almost mostly dry, but as you just saw, Saranac in that leading car. Actually, that quite looked like Felipe in a Cadillac instead. But you take my meaning. The track's still wet around some of the edges. We do expect weather to push in near the end of this race here today, and we don't know what that's going to mean as far as strategy is concerned, and neither do the drivers. They'll have a little bit of the forecast that they can take a look at and sort of figure out what they want to do. The question will become, can they make it that long to do anything with a pit stop late in this race, or will they have to make a double pit stop if the rain gets too heavy? We're expecting, Les, somewhat significant rain near the end of the race, but then again, it's only a percentage of a chance. There is a possibility that we make it out without additional rain here today, but I'm not from Florida, but I've been here quite a lot in my lifetime. Let me go ahead and tell you, I don't trust the rain to stay away from Florida, especially this time of year.
Yeah, and when it does start to come down, it really does. It is saturating, but in Florida. But I must say that iRacing have done a real good job here with the rain conditions. There's obviously some things I can see need improving, but all in all, it's put on a great spectacle for most, and it's really stirred up the pot with a lot of the regulars. Like I said, I'm quite new to iRacing, so it's not only new to iRacing but also new to the wet iRacing. Yeah, it'll be interesting with pit strategy, like you say, with the weather coming in. We've got see the water around the edge of the track there. I just noticed it myself. But yeah, it's with pit strategy. I know the GTDs. I'm pretty certain the Aaron 20. It's right on the cusp of having to stop. I didn't know if they would be able to do the whole race without stopping. But of course, with the rain coming anyway, if it does, of course. But the rain is sort of in, and we'll see a few pit strategies come into play. But I've no clue about the GTPs, so we'll see how they go in regards to pit strategies, but it sets out for a great race.
It certainly does. If you're unfamiliar with Sebring Raceway, then let me explain a few things. Of course, we're about 70 miles south of Orlando. We're 140 miles north of Miami. We're in the middle of the state, folks, and I mean that in more than a few ways. And we're not near a beach here. This was a disused Army air base. Stop me if you've heard that one before. It was rediscovered and turned into a sports car racing mecca, and by 1959 it was already world-renowned in attracting race cars from all points of the globe. The first ever race here at Sebring, motor race anyway here at Sebring, was won by a Crosley. And if you don't know what that is, I can hardly blame you. 3.6 miles around or 5.8 kilometers. 17 turns. We're in the last of them, Sunset Bend. It's ever bumpy. Luckily for the drivers right now, it's dry as we get ready to go green for the finale here on IMSA Road Season 1. We're green. Surinach gets away very cleanly in the Porsche. A little bit of a scuffle behind them between Felipe and Sindelar, but they settle it out. Sindelar has to get back in line in third, but he's still pressuring Felipe for that position, and the Triple R cars in the background just hanging on for the time being. I believe Lindner is in the pit lane. The 47 has come around, but just ended back up in the pit lane. Now, I can only imagine they didn't put the correct fuel in, as some of the cars still hitting some of the wet parts of the racetrack. Ted Edwards has been involved in some sort of incident in the LMP2 class. Other than that, Peter Roche, Camperger, and Tom Bryan have been able to get through. Bryan, in fact, has overtaken Leach, and oh my goodness, just locking the car up. That's something that we saw in the 2-hour, 40-minute race here last weekend that was incredibly prevalent. These LMP2s in the wet, in the dry, locking up their tires.
Yeah, and I'm pretty certain from my experience, that it does take a few laps for these tyres to warm up, which is obviously a great simulation. So I assume that's a bit of rear locking there due to cold tyres. But as we see now, the GTD's coming around for their first lap as they start their race with. You see a lot of spray picking up, Jesse. I do wonder with Lindner, maybe they even started on the wrong tyre. I didn't notice the start, but I'm wondering if maybe they started on the wrong tyre and they've opted to pit straight away.
That's a very good point. I could have sworn I saw every car on the white tire. Now, we have a tire indicator on the display, the timing and scoring display there. It's not the center of the tire, the white dot, that you should pay attention to. It's the outside edges of that logo. If they're blue, that's a wet tire. If it's white, it's dry. You can see Lindner is on an outline right now. It is on the white tire. I would have sworn to you that everybody was on dries prior to that, but that is not gospel, so don't take it as such. As we have a race for the lead here after one completed circuit, and the front straight, the pit straight here, very wet around the edges still. The concrete kind of hides a little bit of the wetness, but here is Camperger going completely off of the racetrack, trying their best to widen out the corner, going a little bit too wide. You can't go that far off the line into one. You end up in Narnia, and that's where Camperger found himself. He's able to drive that car back through the wet grass onto the racetrack without further incident, but that has allowed Leach, who has re-overtaken Tom Bryan, to get back into third place as the sun's setting here in Florida.
Yeah, that's. I mean, when you get onto the, as we see a replay here, Jesse, I just paused that. That's a heavy hit into the tyre barrier there. The Audi, unfortunately, of Rowe is going to be looking at some lengthy repairs. But no, just going back to what you're saying about the offline. It is rather wet, isn't it, offline? And I can see with people on the dry, on the slick tyres, it's going to suffer into that following corner. And I think that's exactly what we saw Comprey to do there in that lovely number 46.
Andy Kay's joined us to cheer on his teammates at PSUK. All of them. He's got Meade, Felipe, Leach, and Scott Donaldson in the race tonight. All the PSUK folks showing out here for the finale, and indeed all season long. And yeah, it's just one of those. It's a rough situation early on in a race. Rowe found himself smacking the wall solidly. The only silver lining that you could have from an incident like that was how proximity and how close they were to pit lane. They were able to chuck it down the lane and get it fixed up instead of having to struggle around the racetrack. But the fight's still on for P1 and LMP2 as the GTPs have fanned out just a little bit Golden Daily has found their way up into P3. It looks like Octane is also, those cars were last and next to last on the beginning of lap 1. And they found their way all the way up in the middle, and Daly has found his way onto a podium spot. Canfiker, though, trying to find the way around Roche. Obviously, Canfiker's got a significant amount of speed. Canfiker ran a 50.868 on a lap where he drove off the racetrack, extended the track limits, but also slowed himself down. And he was only 66 100ths of a second slower than Peter Roche. That goes to show you how much speed that 46 has. Nearly almost too much in the braking zone there, but he just about gets it broke up in time.
Yeah, that was some very close and excellent driving there to keep under control. And you can really see how these slicks are really struggling for grip in these conditions. But it's some great driving. And I think we're in for a great race here, Jesse. It looks like we've got some real close times. We'll just look at those lap times like you mentioned before. And in the GTP category, to see Daly up into P3 was a bit of a shock when you were mentioning it. I didn't even notice it myself. So shows you how much attention I've been paying. It's terrible. But no, it's good to see as they come around to the final part of the track. It looks like Caprade is going to go for another move onto Roche, and we've got an incident here. It's Ted, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a Porsche prototype. Was that Lindner? I think that was Lindner's number 47 Porsche GTP that had contact there, just trying to get out of the way. It is Bastian Lindner, and just almost got away with it there. The reversing car of Ted Edwards has had an incident there. That's the second time Ted has been around. Peter Roche has just been off the racetrack, and that's allowed Canfiker to get all the way up beside him and past him. Oh, Lindner had additional issues there that we previously didn't see, but as we were watching that replay, Canfiker has taken the lead. Roche made a tiny mistake there for the battle in the lead of LMP2, and that has allowed the 46 Dallara to get in front. Here's how it happened. The CLR car of Roche leading here. Just going to go off the racing line a little bit, and all that was enough. Slowed him up. He's on the opposite side of the racetrack, and that allowed Canfiker down the inside. Completely defenseless was Roche, the 46 into the lead.
Yeah, and it looked like a carbon copy of what Canfiker had done the lap before, didn't it? And then Roche paid the price and has given up the lead. But I can't see this battle ending anytime soon, so we're in for a good one. But yeah, you can really see how just going offline, like we've already mentioned, I know, but just going off that line a little bit, and the grip's just gone. But yeah, Lindner there with the unfortunate incident with Ted Edwards, and when he obviously gone off track, tyres probably covered in debris and grass and mud and very cold, and yeah, unfortunately, as you watch a replay here, Jesse.
Daniel Merchant's going to have an accident here, and was that with Bart Macha at the time? I saw that Miller had an accident. That was unrelated to this. Merchant has towed that car, and that's why Merchant has towed that car. I was going to say that was very odd that Daniel towed the 175 Audi to pit lane after that little incident, but that wasn't it. The car slipped, hopped over the curb, and hard into the wall, and has brought them into the pit lane. Miller's Ferrari 124 has had a similar fate, though, as I mentioned, unrelated. We saw there Heilman getting, there's a mechanical fault there is what's going on. We saw Heilman overtake Tom Bryant for fourth in LMP2, and that's what happened to Miller. Miller didn't get into a wall. He's had some sort of mechanical gremlin.
Yeah, it certainly didn't look good, did it? But yeah, it was a great move there. Sorry, an overtake by Mr. Harmon. But yeah, no, I'm just shocked at how much water's still left on the sides of the track. I mean, I don't know if it's the time of day and the temperatures, but it just shocks me with this track, the amount of racing lines that you can use and take and still gain time. And but yeah, as we see them, a prime example, this last corner onto the final straight, there's many different lines through there. They're some quicker than others, obviously, but when you're trying to make a move in conditions like this, it must be very tricky.
Racing lines here I always found very situational, and of course with the weather and the rain, the puddles in this case on the racetrack, that changes that quite a bit as well. But situational meaning that in turn 17, the last turn, you may attempt to go incredibly wide and cut in a late apex, if you will, if you're racing somebody else, just to try and get under them or make them change their line. A normal line, what we saw with some of the other cars, they run to the extreme outside of the racetrack, even off the track a little bit, which is completely fine. And you can do that a lot of different corners here, depending on if you're trying to race somebody to get in under them, to outbrake them. It is weird. It's a very flat racetrack, and it doesn't look very raceable. And certainly there's places that aren't. We're coming up on it from just about turn 10 all the way to turn 16. I wouldn't imagine anybody doing any genuine racing through that section. But 17 through 7, I reckon that you can just about get it done in most places. In fact, we already have seen a lot of passes done in those corners early in this race. Just about another 2 laps away from the GTPs getting into the GTD field properly. Of course, one of the GTDs, Daniel Merchant's already lapping. Well, actually, no. Daniel Merchant's car has DNF. That's Miller's Ferrari that they're lapping in the middle of the they're actually in the LMP2 field, I've just realized as well. So one car's been lapped, but a couple laps from now, they'll be in there very heavily indeed. In fact, right now, you can see, and you will see, the GT3 coming into the background of that shot there. We're going to have to navigate. This is the most dangerous time, Les, in my opinion, in this race. The first time through, the slowest class in the field, they're still racing each other. You've still got someone hot on your tail. Your race can be ended instantaneously if you make one false move this time around.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a bit of experience in endurance and multi-class racing, in various different sims, but it's the same. It doesn't matter what sim you're in, or in real life racing. It's always a dodgy part of the race is when you've got those faster class cars coming through on the slower class cars. It can just be a simple lapse of concentration because, well, in many cases, the end of people's races. And a typical example there, we've got the Porsche getting like go around another Porsche of the slower class, using the textbook manoeuvre, allowing the slower class car.
Oh, it's a big mistake!
That certainly is losing a lot of time there, and now having to do the overtake again on that slower class car, and losing a lot of time to the cars behind. But no, just going back to the faster class cars can lose so much time trying to get past the slower class cars, and vice versa. As long as the move's done cleanly, we're all happy and on our way. But that's part of the enjoyment and the unpredictability of these type of races.
Cernak had amassed quite a lead after Luca Filippi drove off the track for a second time, but it's all gone wrong here. Cernak slowing. That is an unusual rate of slow there by Cernak, your leader, and that has allowed Luca Filippi back into the lead of this race. I have no idea why the number 7 Porsche was that slow on the racetrack. I have no idea at all. Jordan Daly up into third, now up into second. There's something wrong with that car. I don't know if that's a energy harvesting issue or what's going on, but that is very odd indeed. And it's just telling me that the 197 of Daly has disappeared in DNF. Now, that is very strange indeed. What's going on here?
Yeah, I just wonder if that was maybe a disconnect, unfortunately. I think we've got. To be honest, I thought I saw the Ferrari in the GTD category have the same issue. So I do hope that these guys come back and they're able to make the rest of the race. But that's really unfortunate. And but we must carry on. But yeah, it's been a great race so far, isn't it? Just so much action. I can't believe we're only 15 or so minutes in, and already so much action. But yeah, it's amazing. Just look at the lap time as well, how close it is throughout the whole field, within their own categories, just how close these drivers are.
Fastest car was Cernak, but Filippi now in the lead of GTP. Camferger continues to lower the bar. They're in the low 49s now, a 49.154, the quickest car in their class, the quickest lap the last time through. The quickest car in GTD is actually Ethan Jenkins, number 12 BMW, set the quickest lap a few rounds ago and has yet to be beaten. Benjamin Heilman not done, though. Had to come through the field for the first time in a few races. Had a streak of starting on pole or the front row. That's come to an end here today, of course, but they're still showing that they have the speed to be able to compete with the top drivers, trying to get by Leach here for third place, right as close as you possibly can get through Bishop, and now up into 15 and 16 called Lamont, and falls off of him, the back of him, and this is the different line I was talking about. Just a little bit different arc there for Heilman. What he's trying to do with that is just get a better run down the Ullman Straight where we are right now. He hasn't quite been able to close up that gap entirely, but if he does a different line here again, and he will, he's going to do that wide sweeping turn I talked about. You're going to see, I think, Leach, who's going to try and run out wide, got a little bit loose. Heilman was able to almost V off the corner a little bit, late apex, gained it all back, looking for a move into one, double clutches, doesn't go for it, and his line astern. But that's a lot for a driver to think about in a few couple of corners, following somebody this close. You got to know the course, Les. You've got to know where you're beating somebody else. And on top of that, you've got to keep yourself out of danger, because if that car in front of you is slower than you in certain corners, you can't just run to the back of them. You ruin both of your races.
Yeah, and that was a real prime example of as we see Benjamin there, it gets really close to the back there of Leach, going into that tight turn there. But yeah, like I said before, it just goes to prove there are many different lines that you can take. But I must say, I do think Heilman here is trying the scare tactic. I think he's just pulling out, just showing his nose, just to see. Make Leach just think about that he is there and he is close, and he will capitalise when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. You got to be very close. And here's the thing about Heilman: whenever you're behind another car, you almost go back to school a little bit, and that's what Heilman's done in this case. He's been able to study what Leach is doing. Leach is driving that car a little bit harder. Case in point. And that's going to come back to bite you, and it has done. Benjamin Heilman up to third place, Leach down to fourth. I just felt like Leach was driving a little bit harder than Heilman was. Heilman looks a little bit more calm and collected. Leach was driving a little bit more furious, and eventually, you can get away with that for a little while, but eventually, one way or another, you're going to end up off the racetrack or running wide, and you're going to give somebody, an opponent of yours, a little bit more of an opportunity. And Heilman, of course, was able to do that with Leach driving off of the racetrack a little bit. A little bit further back in LMP2, this is Donaldson just looping at that common LMP2 problem that we've seen all season long. Hopefully a safe rejoin and everybody able to get around them there. But just that same issue, Les, of the car entering the turn backwards.
Yeah, I mean, the rear's locking up, and it's, once they lock up, unless you're very quick, got very quick reactions and ease off the brake pressure to allow that the rotation again, and stop the rear coming around, then it's game over. The rear end will be coming around to kiss your front end. But yeah, we've got another outbreak in there into that hairpin. But yeah, I'm just seeing in the chat, Jesse, that unfortunately Mr. Daly did have a game crash, and unfortunately has had to DNF because of it. It's a real shame, because, starting off, there's a little bit further back than what we normally expected with Daly. To see him get up to as far as P3, and was looking for a P2. Unfortunately, it's taken away. But on to the next, Jordan. On to the next. But yeah, no, it's. I'm just. I think with Leach, going back to the Leach and Harmon incident. Well, not incident, but the overtake eventually. You can see Leach probably take a bit further back, take a bit of a breather. Now follow Harmon now around the track and just see what the different lines are. I just got a funny suspicion that maybe Harmon just allowed the tyres to come in a little bit longer and let them warm up a bit better, and eventually the lap time started coming down, trying to find his feet, and then eventually he's the quicker of the two cars.
I tell you the thing about Leach too is that a big catch right there. That was almost disaster into the outside of Sunset Bend. Able to keep a hold of it, but only just. I was just going to say, in Leach's case, sometimes all you need is a car to go out in front of you, something to follow, somebody that can teach you a better line through the corner, and all of a sudden you're sort of playing catch up. But at the same time, you learn some better lines, some better techniques into and out of some of the corners. And where you were bad before or worse off than your opponent, you can equalize that, and where you're better, you're still better, and you can get right back at them, the yin and yang, if you will. But Leach's car just seems like it's a little bit evil around some of those corners, and we hope that he's able to continue to hang on to it. As impressive as it has been for the 711 Dallara, we hope that it continues in that way. Join you on board the second place GTP car. Cyranek has been able to regain the spots, everything that they've lost so far. Luca Filippi's down into third place here, right behind us. Sindelar, who took second by virtue of Daly exiting the race early, and Cyranek falling back quite a bit a few laps ago. Sindelar has taken the lead in the number 50 Porsche. Cyranek back up to P2. Luca Filippi from the lead down to P3 now.
Yeah, it's been quite racing the GTP category, isn't it? And I've just been watching some of the lap times as we're on board there with Cyranek, and yeah, just seeing that Lindner had actually set the fastest lap of the race so far for the GTPs. You know, back there, lap down, but still pumping in the time. So you never know. You know, with just under an hour to go, you know, places could easily come up. We've got weather maybe coming in, so you know, anything could still be going. It's always worth keep going till the end. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good seeing it. You know, we're seeing the great race down at LMP2 as well. I mean, Camprega's, you know, managed to get past into the lead and just seems to be setting some really quick times. You know, on average, you know, I've been watching the laps, on average about half a second quicker than the field. So as I say that, of course, Harman then puts in a lightning time and sets the fastest line. But you know, yeah, it's certainly turning out to be a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
Certainly the case. All close racing here. Cyranek and Sindelar. A little wide there. Cyranek was hoping to get a better run off the corner. Didn't quite get that. Meanwhile, Billy Octane and Luca Filippi racing over third. Billy Octane put him all the way up into third place from starting dead last in their class. They're on the podium for the time being, making it an all-Porsche podium. Now, is this telling about what we'll see in the real Sebring 12 hours in time? I don't know, but for right now, it is an all-Porsche top three. That is so rare in this series. We've had absolute brand parity at every race to this point, but not right now. It is Porsche on top of everybody else. Of course, now there are, 5 Porsches out of the 6 or 7 cars in that top class, but it hasn't always been like that. And even when it has, we've seen Cadillac in there absolutely dominating. So we'll see. Can Luca Filippi get back up there? And also, don't forget about Lubos Lepp as well. Lepp in that Acura was a absolute star at some of the races as well, dominating in the only Acura entered in the series. Peter Roche has been passed by Camfriger. Camfriger leads the race in LMP2, and I have no idea. Nope. Peter Roche just ran the quickest lap of their day, and that was 0.2 quicker than the leader, the 46. But of course, all those laps where Camfriger was so much quicker has gained them quite a sizable lead. I will say, Les, if you haven't been with us, it's been a way cleaner race than we've seen in the series this season.
Yeah, I have been witness to some of the more eventful races, shall we say? But yeah, I have seen some of what's been going on. Admittedly, I haven't been able to see every single race, but I've been keeping track. But I am still shocked though. You know, we're a good sort of 25 minutes in now, and still the top 5 in GTP, for example. You know, they're within sort of 5 or 6 seconds. You know, from first to fifth. So it's, you know, it's really quite tight. I'm just, like I said, I am quite shocked at how close it is. I really was expecting a runaway leader, you know, with a couple of gaps, but no, it's still all on for right the way to the finish. But as we're looking at a replay here, Jesse.
Certainly are. Looks like Leach is going to loop the 711, and the rejoin is fine. Everybody able to get back around them, but Leach has gone from battling for a top position to outside the top 5 now, as the handling has clearly gone away in the 7-Eleven car. But of course, we are told that there is the expectancy of inclement weather here at some point later on in the race. That will likely be sometime in the final 20 minutes. So everybody will pretty much have to do a pit stop before then. They will reach the end of their fuel tanks by that point. But will the weather actually get here, and how severe will it be? That is one thing that we don't know. I can tell you that in practice earlier, not the actual practice, but the pre-practice, if you will, the weekly practice server, it started raining, and it was raining in only about 4 or 5 corners. The rest of the track remained dry, quite puzzling and infuriating. Could we see more of that to complicate proceedings this evening?
Well, who knows, Jesse? But we'll just have to patiently wait and see. But it will be interesting to see, like you said, the pit stops. Oh, as we see, very wide and onto the ground. It's a flash of the lights there. Maybe the not so appreciative of what was going on there, but yeah, no, like you're saying, as we look for a move here down the inside, sorry, Jesse, and it gets the move done. But yeah, it's going to be interesting with these pit stops coming up. You know, like I said, with the fuel levels coming down, I think you can clearly see there's a lot of people really struggling now towards the end of their stints. You know, they're really struggling with different parts of the track, and where there's wetter parts of the track than others. And with this darker light coming down, you know, the sun setting, you know, the lights are coming into play, and some people just aren't able to sort of quickly adapt to the darker conditions, and you know, lap times come from others in the field instead, and that's how we see it so close.
It certainly is. Of course, the weather still changing and cooling off here on the racetrack. Some of the racetrack asphalt, some of it concrete. It's difficult to get right. Of course, you're dodging the wet patches that still persist, of course, as we enter the night phase of the race. It will make up the bulk of this 80-minute event. You can see some of the spray as well. This part of the racetrack still considerably wet. That was wetter than I thought it would be after all of the practice, qualifying, and dry running we've had. But the sun completely gone at this point. The lights absolutely necessary on the race cars at this point, and with the track cooling off, and maybe some of these teams, they set up their car for grip immediately, and that has played them quite nicely up to this point. But now all of a sudden they're not finding the grip that they otherwise would have. You could have it the other way around too, with some of the cars having a little bit more grip, maybe setting up their car to be better right about now. This would have been something that they would have had an opportunity to sort of plan for and practice for as well. It just sort of comes down to what they thought at the time was most advantageous. Maybe if you were starting further back in the field, set your car up to be better later, and if you're up at the front, maybe you set it up to be good now to try and stay out front.
Exactly, and you know, these are the things that we're probably never going to know. But I have noticed that we've had Cernak coming into the pits for a pit stop. I do hope that's you know, a planned pit stop and not an unplanned pit stop, as they say. But yeah, I am surprised at just how much water is still left on the track. Like you said, you know, depends on how people set their cars up. You know, if they've gone for the longer route, you know, down the line for the, you know, allow the tyres to come in a bit slower, but towards the end. But I did notice that last lap, a lot of teams were setting their fastest laps of the session so far. So I'm assuming the track's coming to them, or the setup's coming to them instead. But there are a lot of quicker lap times coming in now, Jesse, as we get closer towards the pit stops.
Yeah, of course. I don't know if Cernak actually came into pit lane. Normally it would display that they pitted and what lap they pitted on.
It certainly showed them as pits, Jesse. It said they were in the pit lane.
That's very interesting indeed, because we don't have a pit lap number for them. But if anybody were to come in now, you could make it to the end. I'm pretty sure it'd be close for GTPs. Everybody else could come in. That's absolutely true. And you're right, Les. Cernak has come into pit lane, but but it was 22 seconds down pit lane. That can only be driving through it, and even still, I don't know if 22 seconds is long enough. That might be the minimum. Unknown if Cernak may have had a drive-through penalty issued by iRacing for track limits already, or something to that effect. We'll see if we can't pull up the pit, or excuse me, the incident point limits. Here they are on the screen. You need, well, I believe it's what, 17 or more, and nobody has that many. So Cernak has come down pit lane, but has not stopped or pitted the race car.
That's very odd, isn't it? I'm wondering if maybe a move was made and to avoid maybe someone at the last second and had to dart down the pit lane to make an avoidance. But it's very odd, very strange indeed. But I'm sure as the race comes to a close, we'll find out exactly what happened. But yeah, it definitely said he was going down pit lane, and you have confirmed that. But I am, I'm still so shocked, Jesse, at just how much wetter it is at some parts of the track and some parts so much drier. So I'm assuming people are just getting that little bit more accustomed to how the track is in certain places, and they're just finding that lap time, and it's just coming down. Obviously, the fuel level's coming down as well, but then again, the tyres are wearing off. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see when these other class cars come in as well. And obviously when the leaders come in on the GTP, but very, very odd, I must say.
Ricky Racetrack, Sebring Raceway. No modern drainage systems here. No trick concrete or asphalt that soaks up the weather. It is very old school indeed. The puddles stick around, and especially in this climate and this humidity, they don't really go anywhere. The only time that they really dry up is, of course, when the sun's beating down on them, but we don't have that luxury here today. The race start just prior to sunset here in Central Florida. Sindelar leads the GTP category, has the biggest of the leads thus far. It's about 3.6 seconds over Billy Octane. Dulos Lep in third place, challenging Octane for that spot. And just as I say that, Lep has had a big accident that has taken them off of the racetrack and given Billy Octane a little bit of a breather. And why has that happened? Because Lep is fighting LMP2 traffic, and he's had to go around the mobile chicane of the HWT car, and that caused him to outbrake himself and drive off of the racetrack. Unfortunately for Lep, but good news for Octane, who has now been released. Luca Filippi has now driven up into P3 in GTP.
Yeah, I think that was a classic example there, with unfortunately Lep being the example of a bit of impatience, trying to get around the slower class cars and outbraking themselves off the racing line and then ultimately ending off the track. But yeah, it was unfortunate, but as we see now, the leader of the LMP2 category, Cabrega, setting some really good times, consistent times as well, with Holman now into second place and Roach into third.
Yep, good racing. We've seen that quite a lot here in this LMP2 category. It's been incredibly competitive. No differences in these cars, unlike the other two classes. They're all Dalaras. They're all spec racing cars. The only thing different, of course, will be the setup and the driver behind the wheel, and that has led us to some wild races this season with some unpredictable results. Today, looking like pretty much the same is on offer, but I gotta tell you, Benjamin Heilman has had significant heartbreak in this series thus far. Benjamin wants to win one of these races. They've got multiple poles, they've led a bunch of races here and just haven't been able to 100% complete it, and they're doing it the opposite way today. They were not the star in qualifying, they were not the top two, but they've driven back up there to P2, and they're kind of keeping around that 7-second bracket right now. Of course, with pit stops at some point, you never know what's going to happen with that, but Heilman would love to get a win, at least a podium here, but certainly a win here in the final race of the season.
And that'll be a sort of fairy tale ending for Benjamin, I'm sure, but Yeah, maybe because a little bit less pressure, not qualifying as well. Maybe didn't think would do as well in the race, and a little bit less pressure, a bit more fun. And sure enough, it's come to fruition, and now in P2. But as we're on board now, the leader of the GTD category, we've got. I want to get this name right, Jesse. I'm going to say Rolf.
So we talked to him. We talked to him a few weeks ago, and I gave him I explained to him that in English, or in American English, that's roof. We have we have two companies here in America. One is named Roof, and one of them is named Ruoff, and they're both spelled the exact same, but they're different companies that do different things. And I asked him which one it was. He told us it was Ruoff, and it goes to show, even though it's spelled the same, it can be something different. You call him Cam Prager. I pronounce that as Camfrager, but that might be the Canadian corruption in me that wants to pronounce it that way.
Yeah, well, they're not in my good books because they stole my race number, Jesse. So
oh dear,
oh
dear.
No, it's fine. But a bit of banter going on in the chat. But I'll let him have it. Leading the race with the number 46, I'll let them have it. But yeah, to see Ruoff there in the lead as we did, and being up there for quite some time now, and really setting the pace in GTD. But I am a little bit surprised actually, just how close the LMP2 category are to the GTPs, considering there is quite a difference in power as far as I'm concerned. I know aero plays a lot on a track like this, but I am quite pleasantly surprised at just how close it is.
Felipe on Octane here for GTP P2. Yeah, it's about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds quickest drivers to quickest drivers if you want an apples-to-apples comparison. And in the wet, it is actually the opposite. The LMP2 cars have shown us this in the 2 hour 40-minute race that we did. The LMP2s are actually the quicker cars than the GTPs. They've got so much more going on than does the GTPs, and that actually slows them down in the rain. As far as the LMP2s are concerned, though, whatever it is, they have extra of it, whether that be extra grip because they're trying to put less power down, or maybe the aero just responds better in the wet. I don't know. But if we do get significant wet here, there will be LMP2s that are quicker than the GTPs. We saw it at the endurance race last Saturday. I've seen it consistently throughout the week with the streamers that have been doing multi-class racing in the rain as well. It's one of those things that, because what you said, Les, the classes are close anyway, and what do they always say? The rain is a great equalizer. You add that too with a car that's has a little bit more traction and a little less power, all of a sudden they're the car to beat in a rain situation.
Yeah, it's got all the ingredients there, hasn't it, to be a very competitive car within this type of multi-class racing. And I've not driven the LMP2 all that much, to be honest. I've had a little go in the GTP and the BMW, which doesn't appear to be very popular in this series. In fact, I don't think I've seen a single one here. But yeah, it's I have tried it. It's an extremely difficult car to get used to, especially with the braking. These cars not having any ABS, but yeah, get a nice little squirrely power out the corner there from Mr. Bryan. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. You've really got to have guts to just chuck it into a corner and just rely on that aero to make that car stick to the asphalt or the concrete, whichever section you're on. Totally different driving aspect compared to GTD or GT3 is what I'm very used to.
I can describe LMP2 for you quite easily. Les Stevenson, you ever drive a tractor?
Well, I'm from the country, so yes.
It's a bit like that, but with more aero and horsepower. Less torque, though. Less torque than a tractor.
Yeah, yes, I can imagine. I mean, some of these tractors, we got any John Deeres out here tonight?
Yeah, they're all pretty much like that. LMP2s are funny like that. That's not a negative thing. I'm not being negative about LMP2s. I love them. In fact, they're an excellent middle ground here, as Lumos Lep nearly running out of space on the track. But yeah, the LMP2s, they typically plow. I think drivers tell you that they understeer a lot, that they plow. You have to really turn those things in at a lot of racetracks, and it can catch you off guard if you get behind your steering. Lumos Lep's having a heck of a lap here.
I mean,
Dare
I must
say.
say, oh, sorry, Jesse, I must say that the previous incident there of Lep, that must have been one of the slowest incidents I think I've ever witnessed. But really unfortunate. Really trying to catch it rather than going off track. But yeah, having a few moments here, like you said, on this lap, and yeah, it's a shame because they were really quite close, having a good battle.
LMP2 pit stops are occurring. Benjamin Heilman is in the pit lane, so is Leach, so is Donaldson. Looks like Heilman has beaten Leach out of pit lane at least. So they'll be the leader of the cars that have pitted. Luca Filippi has also pitted. They'd caught Billy Octane for a lap or two there, was right behind them, but they had then decided that was the correct time to come into pit lane. Lumos Lep has brought the struggling number 18 Acura down pit lane as well. None of the GTDs have pitted, and that's not abnormal. It'll be some time. They could actually probably go, Les, those GTDs, they could go to right around where we expect the weather to move in, check the radar if they have it, they have access to that, figure out what's happening. As we see Ted Edwards off and back on the racetrack in turn 10, they could probably go the distance and work the strategy around if the weather is going to get here in time. We know that there's rain coming into Central Florida tonight. The question becomes, does it get here? Are the winds strong enough to push it in before the end of the race? And that's the big thing I've been told by our event management staff, that it is scheduled, but you can't quite tell if it'll get here or not. But GTDs, in my opinion, are the only ones in a position to really worry about that. Everybody else in GTP and LMP2 are probably, if it does rain, they're going to have to do a double stop. I don't think either of those classes can fully make it. The rest of LMP2 in the pit lane right now as well.
Yeah, and we see the BMW there of Jenkins going. Yeah, it is of Jenkins. Sorry, losing the rear end on entry into the corner there, but very unfortunate. Did the right thing though, held the brakes on and just waited for the truck to come around. But yeah, I did sort of allude to that at the start. The GTDs having that luxury of being able to go sort of almost race distance, and having that option of really sort of making their pit stop count for probably the inclement weather that is due, hopefully for us, Jesse, before the race ends. But yeah, it does look. I mean, you look at the flags, you can see there's definitely a breeze out there. It's I'd say quite a strong breeze. So you never know. It could be here sooner. You think.
I'll tell you what was weird. We were observing practice earlier, and the wind was blowing out of the west. So it was blowing out of the west to the east, which is a normal pattern here for Florida, except that the rain was moving in from the east, which is incredibly abnormal for this part of the world. But it's not that it doesn't ever happen. It is just incredibly rare. Normally, that kind of storm is indication of a hurricane, not something that this part of Florida, or any part of Florida, really is shy from, but still very strange indeed. The wind was blowing east. The rain was coming from the east. Odd situation that was occurring, and that wasn't necessarily what was supposed to be happening, but you know what they say about weather, you can try and predict it, but you never really know. And also in Florida, if you don't like the weather, certainly 5 minutes time, it can be completely different.
Yeah, that's a very strange observation. I mean, to be having the wind going in one direction and the rain coming from another is something I've never witnessed anyway. But maybe these guys going round and round and round around the racetrack and creating that vortex.
Oh, here we go.
and really sucking that rain in. But yeah, let's wait and see. We've seen quite a few now. I think that's now everyone within the GTP category have now pitted, and it looks like, if my eyes are not deceiving me, it does look like maybe even the LMP2s. Jesse, have I got that right?
Well, there are a couple of cars in GTP that hasn't stopped. We saw Surinach that did come down pit lane. They did not stop. Still not sure why they came through. It could have been a penalty that wasn't a track limits penalty. It could have been a track cut, something like that. We don't know. Or it could have been, as Les alluded to, it could have been avoidance of something as well that forced them down the pit lane. Maybe they slid in there and they were forced to drive down it, but they haven't done a stop, which means they haven't taken fuel. Sindelar is the other car that has not done a stop in that category. Everybody else in on lap 22 or 23 that are still competitive in that group. Everybody in LMP2 has pitted either on lap 21 or 22. The very earliest pitters at the back were on lap 20. So all the LMP2 cars have decided to not be outsmarted by each other, and they have come in. Dykstra in second place now, with Canfriger still in the lead. Benjamin Heilman, for the time being, down to third. And those are your top three in that class, followed by Roche and Bryant, the top five. Pretty much everybody else has had some minor drama or something a bit more serious in that class. Almost nobody in GTD has come into pit lane. That's not really a surprise to us, though.
No, it's really not. And as we've already alluded to before, you know, they can go an awful long way into this race before they have to stop. But yeah, no, it's still some light time. As we see the Benjamin there going very wide out of that, assuming maybe tyres a little bit on the cold side, but yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we said, there's now 34 minutes to go left in this race. That's flown by, Jesse. It's absolutely flown by. Can't believe we've only got 34 minutes left to go. Maybe saying how much I'm waffling on, but no, it's been great so far. Let's see what these guys can do now with the fresher tyres and in some of these categories. As we're still seeing some green lap times going around, so we're obviously still able to put these lap times in. But yeah, as we see, we're now back on board with Benjamin. Let's just see if we can get to the back of Dykstra there to get that P2.
About 3 seconds the gap there from P2 in LMP2. The top two in GTP still yet to do their pit stop officially. Surinach will be out of position surely, though as I've said that, he's not that far behind Sindelar, though it is hard to tell how out of position he's going to be. The 1 minute 50, very interesting, as Sindelar is in the pit lane. That would explain why the time was coming down, actually, is that both of them are in the pit lane. Surinach and Sindelar in the lane. That should give the lead back over to Felipe and Octane in P2, but we'll see just how close it is, as everybody in the top two classes now have made or are in the process of finalizing their stop. These teams right here are hoping that the weather doesn't come back in, that it doesn't force them to make a strategic call late into this race, and they're able just to get away with this one stop, or even worse than that, force them to make a hard decision like not coming in at all, which we have seen in the earlier race on Saturday that we ran. A couple of the cars tried to stay out very long and get away with it. Others tried to stay out on the wet tire when it dried up too and get away with it, and neither was particularly preferable. A couple of cars were able to make it work. Sindelar, it says Sindelar is still in the lead. Is that true? Let's see.
Yeah, I was just wondering the same there, Jesse, and I did wonder if that was Felipe behind, but no, it looked like it was an LMP2 car. And as we now go on view with Surinach, it looks like I'm wondering if they've kept the top two positions there, Jesse, with maybe just a bit longer out in the field to maybe make some lap time up. But I just wonder if we need to wait for them to cross that start-finish line to really see what the order's going to be. But it's all a little bit confusing.
Well, it's. I'm forced to believe that they have got out in front of this field. I don't know exactly how they've done that, unless they just had shorter pit stops, because they were a significant portion behind, and that is exactly right. That is what's happened, folks. The right-hand column with the the time is the total time on pit lane. Sindelar spent 49.9 seconds on pit lane. Shuranak spent 53.2 seconds on pit lane. Everybody else, the next three cars that are in contention, Felipe, Octane, and Lep, they all spent over a minute on pit lane, a minute two, a minute three, respectively. And that's how Sindelar and Shuranak have gotten out in the lead of this race. Now, that tells me typically, Les, that they didn't put as much fuel in the car as everyone else did. So what does that mean? Did they start the race with more fuel and so that they could have a shorter stop and take less? Or did they put in less, expecting weather to come in the next 30 minutes, knowing they were coming down pit lane again anyway?
Your guess is as good as mine, Jesse, because right now I am baffled. I've got to be honest, I'm literally trying to think on Earth. I mean, if they've gone for the shorter fuel stop, anticipating maybe the inclement weather arriving, that's a hell of a risk. But, you know, let's see what comes of that. But, yeah, I'm really shocked. I honestly thought we were going to see, you know, a return to the top order there of Felipe and Octane to take the top two. I honestly thought they were going to come out just behind them and then get in between Octane and Lep. But, yeah, that's a bit of a shock. Yeah, it's great to see the graphics there showing us the lap times. Not only the lap times, but also the pit stop time. So, yeah, we could quite quickly see that they did have a short stop. So the information there makes it a lot easier for us watching in the comms box, but also people at home.
Well, two cars did it. That leads me to believe that they knew what they were doing. Whether we know what they're doing is kind of beside the point. And I will say Luca Felipe and Billy Octane are probably also wondering what exactly they know that they don't know, because there was definitely a contingent of three cars with Lep involved as well, who all agreed that they're going to take maximum fuel or something along those lines. Potentially they didn't change tires, did Sindelar and Shuranak as well. That could have also been part of it. It's really hard to tell.
I mean, that is a great shout, Jesse. I mean, it's quite possible. It could have just been the difference of no tyres against taking tyres with fuel. But, yeah, it's just thrown a right spanner in the works for us anyway. And let's see what happens for these last 28 minutes. But as we're now looking at Tom Bryant here in the LMP2 category in P5, putting a sterling effort in here with some great lap times, actually, to be honest. Not far off the leaders. But yeah, it's you know, that gap as well. I've noticed with Benjamin Harmon and Dijkstra really hasn't changed all that much. It was a little bit less, and then it's grown a little bit more. But they seem to sort of hit a stalemate at the moment for that P2 position. But yeah, like I said, it's all hanging in the balance of whether this rain does actually come on.
Certainly is the case. Let's show you the incident points that the drivers have accrued thus far this evening. You look in the far right column, the incidents INCS category, that shows you how close these drivers are to getting a drive-through penalty. I don't recall if it's 17 or 24 X that they're allotted for this particular championship. I have forgotten, but no driver has breached 17 thus far, if it is indeed that. But here is the weather radar. These drivers, they have this as well, and we also have this. This shows you where the weather's coming in. Now, this is a bit more patchy than the rain we saw in practice earlier on in the day. It was a solid green cloud, but this is light rain with a little bit of an air gap in between. Some more significant rain. I'm a meteorologist. I dreamed of this as a kid. But what you'll see here is there's no medium real rain here. This is all heavy light rain, if you will. But this is still more than enough to drench the racetrack and force the drivers to come down pit lane.
I'm sorry, Jesse. Did you just say very light heavy?
Yeah. If you've ever lived here, you know the difference between a heavy light rain and a medium rain. There is a distinct difference, and it shows up on the radar as such. Blue, incredibly fine light rain. Green is a light rain. Dark green, that is heavy light rain. Yellow is medium rain. and red is you better be indoors.
Well, I'm learning. You learn something new every day. Every day's a school day, and when you meet Jesse Lee, you definitely learn some new terminology. But yeah, heavy light rain is on its way, people. Let's just see. Let's just see when it arrives, and we may get a sprinkle before this race ends by the look of that radar. But it's touch and go, isn't it? It's very touch and go. But isn't it great that you've got this this available to see with that radar? That's definitely a new thing for me. I didn't even know that was even available. So it just goes to prove how much I knew prior to the weekend just gone race, and why I did so terrible.
Well, I just want to say I am not a meteorologist. I know nothing about meteorological conditions, other than the fact that when I go outside and it's raining, I can tell you that it is doing that. And the drivers will be able to tell you that as well. I think that does illustrate what has happened with the top couple of drivers. I think that's what it is. I don't think they took tires on their pit stop, and that was the difference, the 10-second difference on and off pit lane, because they knew they were likely going to have to come back down pit lane again and change tires here at the end of the race. Now, we are expecting now, with that weather moving in, we are expecting rain in the next 10 or so minutes, and it will, judging by the way that the weather is coming on that radar, we're going to start raining in turns 13, 14, 15, and 16. So the eastern side of the racetrack, it'll basically, what I'm telling you is, it's going to get wet through turns 12, 13, all the way up to 16 for the back straight, and turns 3, 4, and 5, the little middle bit, before it ever gets wet at the hairpin or the final turn, which will, considering what the weather pattern looks like, it will make some of the drivers make some hard decisions. Ted Edwards locks the car up to try and keep from running in the back of a GTD. He's successful. More GTDs drive around without further incident. Scary moment for Ted, though, an unfortunate situation, but absolutely the right thing to do. And how close was that, though?
That was insanely close, and we nearly saw what they call the big one, I think. But yeah, just noticed as well, Jess, we've got some GTDs coming into pit lane, and we've got me that's just come out of pit lane, actually. But yeah, that's going to be unfortunate, especially if the weather's coming in and they're having to pit now. Maybe they just took that lighter fuel load at the start of the race, and I hope they didn't live to regret it. But yeah, I've just been watching as well. We've got some lightning times being set by Suriname now in the GTP category in P2. Really trying to get that gap pulled down to Sindelar. Yeah, unfortunate for Ted as we watch him go around now. He's just having a bit of a tough time. He really did try to sort of dab the brakes going into the chicane there, and had to probably press them a little bit harder than he wanted to, which brought the back end round and just about avoided any incident with any other cars.
Sure did. Meade and Ethan Jenkins, the two newest cars off of pit lane, both in GTD. That leaves just the two cars of Ruoff and Matcha are the two that have not done a pit stop here tonight. And again, if you just joined us, we expect rain in the next somewhere around 8 or so minutes. It'll start out as light rain, and I wonder, Les, just how many of these drivers are going to try and race through the weather. They have the same technology available to them as we do. There are likely a few of them that are looking at that rain going, oh, that's not going to be so bad. The race will end before the heavier stuff gets here. So maybe we just try and ice skate a little bit. But here is the rain on some of the corners.
Yeah, I was just about to say, in bar matches down pit road, and if my eyes had deceived me, it looks like it's going onto wet tyres. Looks like it could have been a great call to come down pit lane when they did, and they could have got the edge there on the leaders. And if you're really interested to see what happens now, as you say, as the rain now starts to fall.
Yeah, it's falling on some of the corners, but here, as I said earlier, it's going to take a while for the rain to get here. This is the hairpin turn 7. You'll notice that the windscreen wiper is not on, and it's not raining there, but the second they head off into 8, 9, and 10, now the rain is picking up there. So it's not raining in 17. It's not raining in turn 7 either, but in this end of the circuit, as I mentioned, it is raining here. I will also say that it did get here a little bit quicker than I expected it to have gotten here. And that, of course, is because I'm not an actual meteorologist. I just play one on the internet. And it got here incredibly quick. And that's a bit of a problem for these drivers. If they thought they had time, like I thought they had time, you know, they're going to have to rethink their strategy a bit, because this could be 20 minutes of rain. The way that rain cloud was coming, though, it looked like there's a period in between this and the heavier stuff where it wasn't going to be raining at all. So I don't know if you can, how long you can sit out there and try and let this evolve, this situation evolve. But like you said, Bart Boccia, the first on pit lane, put on wet tires on the number 5 Ferrari, back out to the field. Ruoff in pit lane on wet tires now. Rowe also on wet tires in GTD. Lubos Lep on wet tires in GTP now, as the racetrack is starting to get a little bit wet around some of these corners. The rain intermittent, though, at best right now.
Is this what we call very heavy light rain, Jesse?
No, this is intermittent rain. This is intermittent rain, Les Stevenson.
Okay. Well, like I said, we learn something new every day. But yeah, the spray is definitely starting to come up, and you know we've got the likes of Ash Bibby in our ears, who's now asking if it's spitting. I just want you to answer that one, Jesse.
I don't spit, I swallow. But I will say that Billy Octane is doing a great job here of maintaining a podium spot. They've been as high as second. They started the race in dead last, and I'm quite curious how far up they could end up being here today. It's not been a very good season for Octane and company, but this could completely change their fortune around in one race, and maybe with a little help of the rain. I know that Octane and company were working on this intermediate raining racetrack for the majority of the afternoon. So for that to help them here would be absolute class. A couple of GTPs on the wet tire. Leinard is also on the wet tire. They're the only car on the wet tire in the LMP2 category right now. That doesn't strike me as too much of a surprise. The LMP2s kind of have a long window for when they can come in and get on and off of that tire. I likened it to a tractor earlier, Les, and the rain doesn't really, I mean, LMP2 drivers would disagree with me, but it doesn't affect them the way it does a GTP car.
Yeah, I'm still getting over one of the sayings earlier, Jesse. But anyway, yeah, I mean, if they're tractors, Jesse, then they're the rain's gonna be no problem for them whatsoever. It shouldn't affect them at all. But I'm just looking at the lap times from Mead in the GTD category in P2, still on the dry tyres, still proving that actually the dry tyres are still the quicker tyre at the moment. And you know, LMP2s have proven that as well. I'm just wondering if some people have just bolted too quickly, as we see Jordan Daly now coming in the pits. I didn't realise Jordan Daly was back.
Yeah, he's been back for quite a long time. He's only about 8 laps down, so he reconnected and has rejoined us. Been out there for some time, albeit about 8 laps down currently. Lubos Lep has DNF'd. Unknown what happened to that car. They were one of the first on the wet weather tire here, but they have DNF'd. You worry that potentially some more electronic gremlins playing up there. Billy Octane, Daly's teammate, also in pit lane, getting the wet tire. Sindelar out there on the wet right now as well. Peter Roche has pitted, and the connection lost for Delara in the LMP2 category. They have also taken the wet tire. Ruoff leads in GTD on a wet tire with Mead in second place. Keep an eye on that gap, Ruoff to Mead in GTD. It's 6.6 seconds the gap right now, and it's going down. So as you were right, I think the dry tire is still the preferred tire right now.
It certainly looks that way, and like you said, with the intervals, you know, it's 6 seconds now lower than 6 seconds. And I'm just sort of looking at Lindenar here doing again quick times, really, considering we're in sort of moist conditions on these dry tyres, and still setting lap. Oh, as I say that, still quicker though, still quicker lap times than the wet tyres. And Felipe also proved that point. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Mead's really setting some good times considering these conditions. And, you know, with 15 minutes left to go, I mean, let's be honest, even Jordan Daly, with being 8 laps down, might even be able to get, you never know, might be able to get on the podium. Who knows? Let's wait and see. But it's certainly turning out to be quite a cracker.
I think Daly has found themselves in some sort of unfortunate business here. Maybe loop the car a little bit as they have towed. Remember, that car just came into pit lane. They did not put wet tires on that car, I've just noticed, and I wonder if that was an error, and that has led the 197 into the wall and a tow back to the pit lane. So that car went out there on dry tires, and I don't know if those were new dry tires or that was a mistake. But
sorry, Jesse, I can't help but feel responsible for that incident. I think I might put the commentator's curse on him there, saying he might even get on the podium, and then then literally the same lap ends up being towed to the garage.
Well, this is light rain for those of you keeping score at home. Now, this is not heavy light rain. This is not spitting rain. This is not intermittent. This is just light rain at the moment, but it is wetting the track down. It's not a deluge by any stretch of the imagination, but it will start to get a bit more difficult to control the cars out there. The LMP2s are probably the best suited to this particular kind of weather. If it was a bit more heavy, I'd say the GTDs, because of their sophisticated traction control and ABS systems that they have. But there's something to be said about not losing time out there on the dry tire in this instance. So we'll see how it continues to go. Lumos Lep has DNF. Jordan Daly has DNF. Saranac has taken the lead over in GTP over Felipe, and it's quite a margin between those two right now, as Sindelar, of course, pitted and put on the wet weather tire. We'll see. Here's a replay of Sindelar. Have they had a bit of bother?
Ooh,
nice save by Sindelar in the purple and yellow Porsche. Could that be a race-winning save? Maybe. Oh, no. Hopefully.
Well, and that's another slow. No, as I've just noticed, Jesse, it looks like now is the time to get on those bets. The crossover appears to be now, certainly in the GTD category. We've got we've got Ruoff and Mead setting very similar times now to Bart Matcher. I've got a feeling now's the time to change if they need to come down pit road and get on those wets. And also, as I say that, I've just noticed Ruoff is actually on wet. So, but yeah, it looks like the crossover's there now in all categories by the looks of it.
Mead on the dry ran a 2:09. Matcha and Ruoff ran comparable 2-minute 11 times. Mead, if I'm Mead, I'm pushing my luck as much as I possibly can do at this point in time, knowing that my window is fleeting here and I've got to make up everything I possibly can. I don't think Mead stands a chance of keeping second place to Matcha. Matcha will almost certainly, barring an accident, of course, jump Mead for P2. But I've said stuff like that before and been incorrect. Top two in GTP still on the dry. Still have yet to come back in again. I think they're trying that strategy, Les, of staying out as long as possible, trying to just sort of wait it out and not come in. Go out there on the wet in the dry tire, or on the dry tire in the wet, I should say, and drive it until it's just physically impossible to do. Rather give up that time. Keep in mind, a minute 12 back to Sindelar, who did pit, who is a threat to win this race. You may give up a second or so a lap. There's only 11 and a half minutes left of the race. You can give up all the time in the world and still walk away with this as long as you can control the race car.
I mean, obviously they haven't got the luxury of listening to our meteorologists live.
They probably shouldn't, to be fair.
With this very heavy light rain being on the
Nope, this is still light rain. This isn't heavy light rain. Have you been paying attention to anything I've been saying?
I have, but I'm looking at I'm looking at these lap times, and I'm gonna have to eat my words a little bit, because it looks like the GTD category are actually more equal, should I say, between the two tyre sets, whereas the GTP and the LMP2s appear to have still quite a lot of quicker lap times out of the dry tyres compared to the wet. So, apart from one driver, of course, which is Benjamin Harmon, as we're on board with him now, setting very quick lap times with these wet tyres, and obviously suited to these conditions, and loving it out there at the moment. Really battling with this. Is this a lap car? I think it might be a lap car, but
I think it might be a lap car.
yeah, it's okay. No, we're being told it's the back of Dijkstra, so it is. That looks a lot closer than 2.9
Yeah, that
seconds.
interval is incorrect.
It's got to be. It's got to be. And as we go for a move here now, around this long sweeping right-hander right round to the start-finish line. Again, both taking very different lines, and Benjamin giving a flash of the lights there, just to show the noses there.
I think Dijkstra may have made a mistake on that last lap, and that's what absolutely threw our timing and scoring for a loop there a little bit. As they cross the line, it completely resets. Heilman now showing the correct interval to the car in front. It was about a second as they came through, but you wouldn't have needed me to tell you that based on the size of the yellow AAA Dijkstra car in front of him immediately. Leach right behind that has slid off of the racetrack. One of the cars on the dry tire completely loops it around, does a 360 for the fans, and gets it going again. I think we're really close to the point where the dry tire is a very bad idea. This is Bart Macha on the wet tire, losing it, entering and exiting the hairpin turn 7 and 8.
Yeah, I've got
Tom
a funny feeling.
Bryant's just had an incident as well.
I've got a funny feeling there with Bar Matcha. That could be signs of the rear tyres going away, because I remember that Bart came down pit road almost instantly as soon as the rain spots came down. I'm just wondering whether it was a little bit too early, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It looks like Tom Bryant's had a little incident there as well, and we're now back on board with Benjamin Harmon. Oh no, as they also have rear tyres locking up and going off there into the corner there. But yeah, it's looking like it's getting very tricky out there now.
Certainly is. The wet line on the racetrack certainly there. There would have been rubber put down on the racetrack all evening long, and now they're finding that to be the toughest part of the race. It isn't necessarily the rain, it's the weather, it's the rain over top of the run-in line. They're just getting all out of sorts here as Luca Filippi has looped their car as well. They'll have to rejoin. All these majorly are single car incidents where they're just spinning it around with no real harm done, except on the timing board, of course. This is Camperger, your leader, who has just spun. Your leader in LMP2 has spun off of the racetrack on the dry tire. These cars on dries are just trying to make it to the end, but I gotta say, the wet tire's absolutely the way to go. All the cars on the wet tire are quicker than those on dry, but both of them seem to be struggling mightily now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cabrega, really, if they can get into the pit lane now, it's the time to do it. I mean, 7 minutes left to go. I know it's only 7 minutes to go, but they had a healthy lead, so maybe it's the time to just come in, get those tyres. Hopefully they don't have to take any fuel and then get straight back out again. But I know that'll be a lot of time down pit lane, but it might be worth it for this last part of the race. But yeah, there's an awful lot going on now, isn't there? And people really struggling now with the rear end grip especially into these braking zones. And I think the time is now to start taking that wetter line, not the racing line, to gain the maximum possible grip into these braking zones.
Tense moments here, the final 6 minutes, 30 seconds of the series. A lot has gone on this season. It's been a very memorable IMSA Road Season 1 here at RCI TV. We thank you all for being with us throughout all the twists and turns, and we appreciate you bearing with us for the various technical difficulties and limitations that we've had as we cut our teeth on a brand new sim in iRacing. But more than anything, we want to thank, of course, you, the folks at home watching, and the drivers for taking part. I'm not the event manager for this series, but I'm pretty sure Tom Bryant would join me in agreeing that there will be a season 2 of this. This has been absolutely mental. And of course, now with the addition of rain, that changes the game yet again. As final moments of the season, it's just been wall to wall action, unpredictable, so much so that there hasn't been a broadcast that we've done that in some way hasn't left us with questions, in a lot of cases, completely speechless. Some of the back and forth between the different classes has been legendary stuff indeed. Camperger still stays out there on the dry tire, leading the race, but that lap, of course, last time through was incredibly slow in comparison to this man, Dykstra, in the number 888 Dallara. They're running them down. They would have run them down anyway. On the wet tire, they're quicker. Wet tire laps are about a 2:11. Dry tire laps are a 1:59, there or thereabout, as all of these cars, I think, might converge right near the end of this race.
It's certainly looking that way. I mean, the time between Dykstra and Caprega is just literally reducing second by second as we watch on, and it's going to be mighty close. Like you said, with 4.5 minutes to go. I've just noticed as well that Mead in the GTD category is also pitted for wet tyres now, knowing that it's time to get into those wet tyres, and the grip is obviously just not manageable now with the dry tyres, and as we see, Tom Bryant unfortunately having very similar issues.
Well, if you're going to spin off, that's a great place to do it, because there's a tire wall there, there's an access road there, and that's also where the short course connects, and you got all the room in the world to do a 5-point turn, get the car going back the right way, and you're not really under threat of being hit right there. We've seen a lot of cars stranded across the apexes of the racetrack. That was not a situation like that there, and somewhat thankful as everybody trying to limp their way home, especially when you're on the dry tire. 5 seconds the gap to Camprager up in front with Dykstra in tow. It was 16 seconds a half a lap ago. It's down to 5. Dykstra is coming.
Certainly is, and an absolute rate of knots, and certainly using those wet tyres to its full potential. But you know, we've got some great lap times coming in, especially these wet tyres. I wasn't expecting them to be quite this quick, but I can tell you folks, whoever hasn't driven in the rain on the iRacing yet, this is hard work, and I've not done it in the LMP 2s or the GTBs, but certainly in the GTDs, it's harder than it looks, and to see these guys still going around and doing these sort of lap times, it's mighty impressive, and yeah, we're definitely going to see a race for the lead here, as it looks like Cabrega's gone off there. Oh, this is going to be close.
Indeed, an update in the last day or two, and iRacing has helped the lights of the cars show through the spray a lot more, so it gives you a better indication of where cars are. Camprager's gone completely off of the racetrack. They're halfway to the airport here. That's still an active civilian airport, and that's going to be the lead change. Dykstra in the lead here in the final moments here at Sebring. Change of the lead in LMP2.
And here comes Benjamin Heilman as well. Camprager looks like he's going to go from first to third in no time at all. And it really looks like, I can almost anticipate the last corner here. He's just going to take that. It's, you know, Camprager just can't keep the car going in the direction they need it to go in. And as you see there, straight away, Benjamin's now got P2.
Benjamin Heilman, P2. The question now becomes, does he have time? He was quicker, several seconds quicker than Dykstra, and they will have about a lap or two left to go in this race. It depends on when the overall leader gets there. Can Heilman track down Dykstra for the overall win of this race? You can definitely tell, completely outbraking themselves there. Goes incredibly wide off into the very soggy marbles, but gets it back in line and continues. But that will have cost him time, and in fact it did cost him to the tune of about 2 seconds on that one turn. Several cars going around sideways. Tom Bryant again, and I think I saw Lindner have a little bit of incident as well. Top 4 in GTP, all on the wet weather tire. Surenak in cruise control. 31 seconds to the good over Sindelar and Filippi. Those look like your probable top 3 in GTP, unless something absolutely monstrous happens to those cars. Here is Cam Prager just trying to get around here. Look how slowly that car's going through the hairpin on those dry tires, literally limping around this race course.
They literally are, and unfortunately, if they're not careful, they're going to end up losing P3 at this rate. I mean, we've got Roach is quickly approaching as well, down to 24 seconds gap. That will be considerably less by the time the last lap comes round, and yeah, before you know, I mean, they literally are limping round, and I think it's going to be a massive regret of not taking those wet tyres when they could have done to keep that lead, and it's really unfortunate to see. But it's great for the others. So, yeah, there's loads of guys that are just having those little offs, but keeping it in the right direction. And it's just nice to see so many cars still going around and not having to take it back to the garage.
Bart Macha has just had an incident all their own. That will close it out for Ruoff, who's going to probably, as long as they don't have an incident of their own, win it in GTD. Macha holds on to second place. 16 seconds behind him is Mead. That's your top three in GTD. All of those cars on the wet weather tire. One of the prototypes has gone completely off of the racetrack, and to nobody's surprise, it's Cam Prager in the 46 who continues to lose time here, just trying to hang on. Can they hang on for one more lap over Roche? Otherwise, the connection lost 404 to Lara will take home that position. Heilman has made a little bit of an inroad, but not nearly enough. Billy Octane off the road for fourth place. They will rejoin the racetrack up in 8 and 9. Actually, that's 9 and 10, in fact. And they will hang on. No real threat behind them for their fourth place position. Oh, and something has happened. No, it hasn't. Timing and scoring was messing with me. Surenak will come across the line. I think that was the end of the race, and it was, as Surenak has won it over Sindelar and Filippi.
Yeah, what a finish! What a finish, Jesse. And yeah, it's. I'm still a little bit confused as how Cernak and Sindelar managed to get out there, but a great race. And as we now see Dijkstra now coming around these final turns to look like what is going to take the win in the LMP2 category as they come down this extremely fast section of the track, kicking up all that spray. Look at all that rain. That must have been that very heavy light rain that eventually arrived. Is now being kicked up by the back of that LMP2 car and showing that big rooster tail as they now come round these final turns to see the checkered flag.
I knew you were listening to me, buddy. Yeah, we got the medium light rain, or the heavy light rain, whatever I called it, earlier on. It got here eventually. Dijkstra wins it over Heilman, and I can't tell if Cam Prager beat Roche or not. The timing and scoring going absolutely crazy. Ruoff wins it over Macha and Mead, your top three in GTD as well. What a race, what a day it was. Let's talk to our winner in LMP2. Justin Dijkstra, what a race it was. Tell us about your day, and then after you do that, talk to my buddy, Les Stevenson.
Well, I have some sad news. I was on 16X for a very long time, and on the last lap, the rain increased. I misjudged the braking point, and I got a drive-through. So I did not actually win, because I don't know what happens if you take a drive-through while you still have it. But anyway, I came home today. I do weight training before this every weekend. And my iRacing had to update. So I was with 1 minute left, I could sign up. I got in, lost the first challenge. Okay, I saw it was gonna rain. So when the pit stops happened, I fueled my car with 55 liters because I knew I had to change through the rain anyway. Try to undercut, I was hoping everyone else took full fuel, and then I could gain positions. Well, that happened. I was in front of Heilman, and then I just drove until it became too wet. I went to the wet tires, and I saw Heilman pitting behind me, so I thought, okay, I have to pit the next lap, otherwise he's gonna overtake me. Um, and I saw that the guy in P1, Christian, he did not pit. So I was like, are we gonna catch him? But the rain was pretty severe.
Was
Oh, it was so hectic. And then yeah, I overtook him with 1 lap to go, and then yeah, fucked it up in the end.
And apologies for the language here, but Dykes, it's really unfortunate to see you coming in P2 there right at the second, right at the last there. What an unfortunate incident. Well, I just wondered if you could just let us all know just how tricky it was in those wet conditions on the dries.
It was very, very tricky because there was a very high risk of locking up. And since I was already on 16x when, like, before the rain started, I knew if I outbrake myself once, I would drive through, it's game over. So I had to be very careful, but I also wanted to overtake Christian in case he got to the pits first. So yeah, it's just very tricky, but I managed to survive.
Well, either way, great race, and thanks for joining up at the last, the death there, just to get in and get in to compete in what was a great race in the end. And unfortunate there, like you said on the last lap, just to get that extra a penalty there to get the drive through. But great race, and it was really, really good to see the close racing and just what the wet weather brings to these sort of races.
Yeah, with like wet weather, you have strategy. Otherwise, it's just one stop and you have to just drive full gas. But now it's really, what I did with my strategy, fueling less because the rain, already came. It really gives me a chance. Otherwise, I wouldn't had any chance of going last to first. There were like 15 seconds in front of me. There's no way I can close 15 seconds on my own. So it was a great challenge.
A great challenge, and you proved a lot of people wrong in regards to, and yourself, of course. We trying to close those gaps down. The inclement weather comes in, and then the whole game changes. So congratulations on what was the P2 in the end. And look forward to seeing you in events to come.
Yeah. Thank you, man, and I will definitely join next season.
That's
Let's
great.
go.
Jesse, any questions?
No, I just want to say what an excellent campaign. It's been a pleasure to talk with you after these races, Dijkstra, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Unfortunate luck here today, but still an absolutely brilliantly ran race. Well done.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, from Dijkstra, who crossed the line first but ended up in P2, to the eventual winner of LMP2 that found out just a moment ago that they've actually won the category, or it won the split today. Benjamin Heilman, how does it feel? You're a winner here at RCI again, but now in a different sim.
I don't know. Until I learned that it actually was a DT, and I thought it was just a bug from iRacing. I thought I somehow cheated the win. So I guess it's at least better to let it win the race. But I don't know. This season has been a bit sad for me. I think I could have won more races if I knew how to actually fuel save, but I don't. So,
but Benjamin, you've ended it on a high. You got that race win in the end. We were talking about it during the commentary about your bad luck during this season. You've certainly been quick. You've had the pace, but to get that P1 in the last race of what was been a great season is it's got to be the icing on the cake.
Yeah, except it wasn't bad luck. It's just me not knowing how to fuel save and almost always having to do an extra stop and then losing the position, or getting too many cuts and getting a DT.
And that's what we love about you, Stewie. Is the honesty is ever prevalent.
But I would have loved to have the fight with Justin in the end. But I still don't really understand how I spun there. I must have hit some weird puddle or something. I don't know. Would have been nice.
Other than the luck or the lack thereof with the issues, Stewie, what is your big takeaway from Road Race Season 1 here at RCI?
I still love the LMP2 as much as I did before, and I learned some new tracks that I've never driven before. And I still don't like fuel saving. I just want to put the pedal down and go.
Well, I think we can all agree with that. Well, Stewie, congratulations on the win here today. And it came down, we can honestly say, came down to the very last. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Well, waiting very patiently is our winner from GTD. Yannick Ruff has won it again. Welcome back. Today, though, mixed conditions made that tricky, but you handled it like a pro.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It was a tough race. I tried to fuel save all the way from the beginning. I just lifted very, very early to save as much fuel as possible, and yeah, it worked out in the end. I could have saved, I think, one more lap, but it would have been pretty close. So I decided just to pit. Yeah, and it was just the right call because when I stopped in the pit lane, it started raining, or a few corners earlier, I think. So it was just the right timing. 1 lap later, 2 laps later would have been absolutely perfect. But yeah, worked out for me. So I'm quite happy to end the season on a high.
What did you think when some of the field disagreed and stayed out on the dry tire? Were you hoping that you were right, or did you know that they would eventually not be right?
I thought they wouldn't be right, but it stopped raining 2 times for kind of half a lap, and the Mercedes behind me catched up real quick, so I was scared for a lap or 2, but then it started raining really hard, and I was like, okay, yeah, I got this.
Well, I asked Stewie this, so I'll ask you this. What's your big takeaway from this entire season?
Driving tracks I don't like. uh, but yeah, sadly I missed one race, so I was kind of already out of the championship. But I also did some mistakes on my own, which cost me also the championship. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway. I have to stay more concentrated, more focused, and the race is over when the race is over, and not a lap or 2 earlier. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from the season.
Well, I'm going to turn you over to my partner, Les Stevenson.
Well, congratulations, Yannick. Like Jesse's already alluded to, to have that race win in the conditions like this, yeah, it's truly, truly grand. It's great also to hear, it's interesting, should I say, to hear that, the fuel saving that was going on during that race. Me and Jesse were talking about, the fact that the GTDs wouldn't have to do fuel saving. So how wrong were we? But like you said, a little bit of luck there when you come into the pit lane. Just as it started to rain, you managed to get those wet tires on almost what was probably the perfect strategy, and it's paid off along with some great driving. But my question to you would have to be, throughout this whole season, Jesse's asked you what can you take from all this, but my question to you would be, how have you thought with the iRacing and the implementation of rain coming in? Has that really sort of changed the way you approach the races?
The rain is pretty awesome. It changes the whole game for me because you have to think about the strategy. For instance, this race, I looked if it's gonna rain, and it said about, I think it was 7:30, the rain will start. So I knew if I save fuel, I might do it till the rain comes, and yeah, so I tried to save as much fuel as possible, and in the end it worked out. So yeah, the rain changes a lot, and you're not have to rely on pace only. You can make up much time with just being smart and making the right decisions, and obviously driving carefully and don't end up in the wall.
Well, that's great, Yannick, and thanks for answering that question. And like I said, congratulations on tonight's race and what looks like pending penalties. You looks like you finished well in the championship too.
Yeah, should be P2. Sadly missed P1, but it's all on me, so it's okay, and still happy with P2. Looking forward to next season to maybe finish P1.
Over to you, Jesse.
Well, congratulations, Yannick. Anybody you want to say hello to? Thanks for anything out there? Friends, teammates?
Yeah, for sure. My teammate Bastian, he drove in the GTP. Yes, but it was a fun season driving with him, and we're looking forward to the next one.
Excellent. Congratulations on today's win. Brilliant drive.
Thank you very much, guys.
From first to third in the GTD category, James Mead joins us to tell us about his day. And by my measure, James, you did a pretty good job judging it correctly today. Got a podium out of it.
Yeah, I didn't judge it just quite right. I was, as Yannick said, then I stayed on the slicks because it was only raining on like part of the lap, so I started to reel him in a lot, and I was praying that it was going to go away, but I didn't get the call in the end, so I had to put the wets on, which cost me the P2 really in the end. But no, it was a great race. Really enjoyed it. Shame that I had to lose it on the strategy, but I love the rain, and I don't really care if I lose that position. It was just such a good race. It's so much fun.
Seemed like for the most part, a lot of the drivers in all the classes sort of behaved themselves. There were a lot of single car spins, especially when the weather came in. But beyond that, would you say it was probably the cleanest race of the season?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Everyone was on point. To be honest, I didn't have a scary moment with anyone. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable race to do. It was just pure fun, no fear, and a lot of respect out there on the track as well from everyone.
Excellent to hear. And how'd you find the series? I mean, did you enjoy the series? Was there any big takeaway for you, or are you just happy that the series or the season in particular is over?
Mine's been very much a mixed bag, but I came into this as I've barely raced on iRacing before. I always did ACC, so I wanted to come into this to kind of just learn more about iRacing. Fuel saving is not a strong point for me either, so I definitely need to learn how to do that. And I've made some errors. I was leading one and then got a sped in the pit lane stupidly, so I've thrown a lot away myself. I've had some bad luck as well, but it's just been a really good learning curve. Like, it's been the perfect thing for what I wanted it to be, to learn more about the game and that multi-class racing and the strategies and everything like that. And you're going to get unfortunate incidents sometimes, but half of the time it's been my own fault as well. So the results are what they are, but I came into it for fun, and it's certainly been that. I've loved it.
Excellent
Well,
to hear. Les Stevenson.
Sorry, Jesse. James, yeah, great result, P3. We were keeping a close eye on yourself and sort of using you as the judge, because as we've learned tonight, I certainly have anyway, James. I don't know if you realise, but you were driving in very heavy, light rain, according to Jesse Lee. And I just wondered, regards to being in the Mercedes. I haven't driven the Mercedes all that much within iRacing. I just wondered what it was like from your perspective in those sort of mixed conditions where you're on the slicks. What was it like? Trying to really judge where to brake. What line to take. When it was in that very medium, light, heavy rain.
Yeah, to be honest, it was really fun. I didn't mind. I didn't really struggle as much as I thought I was gonna do. But then I got nervous with it, thinking like I was a bit early on the brake and a bit early lifting, and I thought, oh, I've got more grip than I thought. But then the next lap came around, I was like, I don't really dare to risk it more than I did last lap in case it's got worse. So, but the grip was actually a lot better than I thought when you've got hot slicks on in that light rain. It was just that the lap that I caught up to Yannick, I was about 2.5 seconds away from him. Like, the rain obviously just got past that point then, and I just saw him like just take away, and it just started locking up a hell of a lot more. I had to be braking so much earlier, and it was so snappy on the throttle that I had to pull into the pits. I wouldn't have been able to manage it any more than that. But the surreal thing was, it felt nicer on the slicks in that light rain than it did in the wets on the full wet. So it was quite good actually.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I've experienced that sort of sensation myself, and that crossover. I mean, like I said, we were watching you quite closely as you were one of the very few on slicks, and we were trying to sort of make out when the crossover would be. And I think you timed it almost perfectly.
Yeah, I think if obviously the best strat would have been to fuel save and go in when Yannick did. But in fairness, I didn't have the pace on him. I managed to stay with him, hang with him at the beginning, and then it's like he lit the afterburners up. I don't have that pace to match him, so hopefully I'll learn and be able to come back and fight him a bit better next season. But yeah, I had to roll the dice and try something a bit different. So I thought, oh well, we'll throw slicks on and we'll see if the game can manage it. I haven't tested enough. I literally didn't practice for this race at all before it, so I'd never driven the GT3 one round here or one in the wet. So I just came in and we thought we'll send it. So it was what it was, but it was good fun.
No, that's brilliant, and thank you very much, James. I'll pass you back to Jesse.
Thank you.
James, you have anybody you want to say shout out to?
Oh yeah, definitely a shout out to the PS UK team. We're all in the chat there. There's Ryan, Luca, and there was Scott who joined us for that one. And it's been a good laugh racing with them all the way through this. And we look forward to coming back next year and just pushing a bit more and seeing if we can get more different class wins as well.
James Mead, P3 today. Congratulations.
Thank you guys, and thank you for everything you've done. It's been a brilliant season. We'll definitely be back.
Absolutely our pleasure. From one end of the spectrum to the opposite, we're going to go to Cam Prager, I think is who we're going to go with. And first of all, you're going to settle a long-standing series debate that we've had. How do we pronounce your name?
I mean, you're not that far away, so we can keep it at that. I've heard worse here in Austria, so.
Yeah, but tell us how you would say it, just so.
How I would say it is Cambrega. So you're right.
Okay.
Your English pronunciation of it is
well,
perfect.
I'm not right. That's Les Stevenson. I didn't pronounce it like that, and I definitely, actually, Christian, I did pronounce it like that all season long. Don't watch the VOD. It's fine. Christian, it was a day that, well, it very nearly came undone. You rolled the dice. You didn't come in for wet weather tires. It looked like you were figure skating out there. How bad was it?
It was okay until it was not okay anymore.
Oh, you mean when the medium light rain came in, the heavy light rain? Yeah.
So I didn't really know how strong the rain would get. Kind of forgot to check out the radar before the race. And I was debating, because I was sitting with a mate of mine, Max, in voice chat during the race, and I was debating, do I take 55 liters and do it like Justin and go wets, definitely, or I just full fuel and keep everything open? And then Stewie, Benjamin pitted, and then Dustin pitted, and I was like, oh, the rain is stopping again. How awesome. I'm just going to stay out. And then, yeah, at the end, the last two laps, it was just way too wet. Kind of the opposite from, I kind of had the opposite from last weekend, where in the endurance, I basically had 2 laps less fuel in the tank at the start by accident and had to go on wets in the dry, which ended bad as well because I burned them up, and then Bart just had more pace. This race, I stayed on the dries and it didn't pay out either. I mean, in the end, it stayed with P3. I guess, yeah, I take it as a learning experience. The only rain I had before was ACC, and this rain is still quite different. It's quite the same, but also quite different. So, yeah, still happy with the race. Love Sebring. I have some weird affection with the track. I don't know where that comes from, but yeah, it's always fun racing around here.
Well said. I'm going to turn you over to my partner, Les Stevenson.
Well, naturally, Christian, I was rooting for you. You know, using my race number, number 46. So it was nice to see you out there. You know, leading the field in your category in LMP2 and doing so well. And I think, if memory serves me right, you were probably about 2 laps too short. I think had the race finished 2 laps before, you would have easily have come home with a victory. But it was unfortunate. It wasn't meant to be. You rolled the dice, as Jesse said, and it didn't quite work out. But yeah, congratulations. And I've asked some of the other drivers already about the wet weather, and you mentioned about obviously it being the same but very different at the same time to ACC. And I just wondered if you could sort of elaborate on that a little bit more, because certainly from my experience, the rain in iRacing is very different to ACC. So I just wondered if you could sort of just elaborate on that a bit more.
I mean, one aspect that it's missing is the tire cooling, right? Which was the part you had to do in ACC with the puddles and everything. I think this implementation of rain, especially with the patch today, it's, I don't know, I would say perfect almost.
Oh, so
you have to you cannot drive on a dry line, which you basically did exclusively in ACC. You have to look for the grip. The dry line is a no-no, especially in the LMP2, because you're missing ABS. You lock the fronts once and straight you go. At least around here, it's like that. I love it. Even I would say the iRacing haters in my team came around and were like, yeah, that's a pretty awesome implementation of rain. It's cool. It's done really, really well. The dry line, I'm impressed by how the dry line forms. I think Dan Suzuki put out a video where he parked the car on the exit of bus stop in Daytona, and the cars went round, and under his car the track stayed wet, and around him it got dry. So, yeah, I think iRacing outdid themselves with this, and the wait was worth it. I hope, or at least for me, it was worth it.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, I didn't realise there was an update to the wet patch. No pun intended. I didn't.
But was
I didn't,
it
I mean,
a
certainly...
heavy light patch, or was it?
I mean, Christian, did you realise that in Florida there is such a thing as medium light heavy rain?
Christian, you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that.
I mean, as a good friend from Florida of mine once said, it says it starts raining and then all of a sudden it's monsoon. You don't know what you get in Florida. It could be anything. So
that is a good point. I mean, I have experienced Florida rain before myself, and it does seem to be dry 1 second, tiny spit of rain, as Ash Bibby would say, and then all of a sudden it's just a monsoon. But then very quickly after that, it dries out very quickly too. But no, it's interesting to hear your thoughts on how iRacing have implemented the rain, and it sounds like they might have hit the nail on the head with certainly most of the competitors today. And it was just a great race all round, and congratulations again. And I'll pass you back to Jesse.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, Christian, I just want to say congratulate you on completing the campaign, and finally got to ask anybody you want to say hello to or shout out there.
I mean, shout out to my guys from Rising Panda Racing. We took a bit of a hiatus after COVID, but we're coming back strong this time around. Maybe I can get 1 or 2 more guys in for the next season of this. Yeah, championship was fun. I sadly had to miss 3 races, but I hope I can attend all of them next season. And yeah, field was strong, especially in LMP2. I was impressed, so it was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for taking part. It was absolutely action-packed out there today, and you were certainly one of the stars. Christian Kampfrager, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us, and congrats again on your podium.
Thanks, guys.
Finally, Peter Roche has joined us. He's joined us from 4th place in LMP2. The day didn't quite end the way the CLR boys wanted it to go, but Peter, talk to us about your race and your day out there.
It's a bit messy, at first surprising because of the pole position, which I have no idea how I got, because it was probably one of the messiest qualifying sessions I had, because at first I was on dry tires and I immediately crashed out of the pits, and I was like, okay, surely I need to be on the wet tires, and then I realized, okay, wet tires are not good, so I just needed to go back immediately to the pits, and I put on dry sets, and I just did a single lap, and suddenly I look and I'm P1, so that was surprising. Other than that, it's a bit of a messy race, consistency-wise, but it was okay in the dry, but then it all fell apart a bit in the wet. And I finished P4, which honestly, that was the target, to just have a safe race and finish in a somewhat decent position, because I wasn't sure if I would win the championship in the category, and it looks like I did, thankfully, so that's great. I was a bit worried that with the rainy conditions I would crash, and then it would probably be really close, and I don't know how it would go. But thankfully it didn't, and I am first.
We will show you the championship standings in just a little bit, but just to confirm, Peter Roche has won the GTD championship pending any post-race penalties. Peter, as long as you don't smack into anyone today, which I don't think almost anybody did, I don't think that's going to be a problem. You had a championship season. Can you sort of summarize what this season has been like for you as a whole?
Well, it was very uncertain, I need to say, because At first, in round 1, I had a really quite a bad race at Daytona, and I finished, I think, P5 or P6. I just didn't feel confident at all. I was like, well, am I even gonna contend for the title? Then, thankfully, in the round 2 at Road America, I won, and it was okay. Then, well, something super unexpected happened, which, well, you just know very well, with the left hand, which was broken. And,
Yeah.
well, from that point, I had to drive with just the right one. And that's how I finished the season. So that's how I did all the races from round 3 onwards. So that was, I would say, the most unconfident part of the championship, because at first I was just wondering, okay, am I even gonna finish a race like that? Then it was all about, am I gonna contend for a win? And well, somehow I did that and had a really consistent couple of races, finishing either P1 or P2. So the middle part of the season was great. The beginning, which was Daytona, and the ending, which was this race, not so good. But either way, phenomenal to win the championship.
Les Stevenson, question for our championship winner in GTD.
Yeah, congratulations, Peter, and a great showing to prove that even with adversity, you still show up, you still continue to race, and you still managed to get that win overall. But yeah, congratulations on P4 today. Just wanted to know what your thoughts were with these wet conditions within iRacing, and just how tricky it was out there being one-handed.
Yeah, it was quite tricky. For me, it was also tricky because I don't know how it was for others, but this was for me the first day I actually drove in the wet conditions in iRacing. Didn't do any of it in week 13 or this week. So it was definitely a learning experience for me, and just trying to find out what works and what doesn't. And well, personally, I have just still a lot to learn from it, because the pace clearly wasn't great from me, and it was also difficult for me to find the right transition point from the dry tires to the wet tires. So I still need to get a feeling for that. But yeah, should be good, should be fun, and definitely adds a lot to iRacing, and should add another great element of the strategy to the races. And yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, I must say though, P, I do feel sorry for a lot of your competitors, especially here in this back, to hear that that's not only is you driving around with with one hand essentially, and not only that, you haven't even practiced in the rain to still finish in P4. I think I'll be pretty chuffed for that myself, Peter. But no, congratulations again, and thanks. I'll pass it back to Jesse.
Peter, anybody you want to say hello to or shout out?
First of all, shout out to Bart Matija, who helped me with the strategy for some of the races, and well, definitely those wins that I had and those good positions, well, were a lot of parts from him, from his help. And other than that, I would say to really all the competitors in my category, because the fighting was just absolutely great. And yeah, fighting with Justin, with Benjamin, and Maciej Hajla, it was just great stuff. And this will certainly be a season which I will look back on very fondly. And yeah, great stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner in LMP2, your champion, Peter Roche. Congratulations.
Thank you. Time to celebrate.
Indeed. And celebrate you will. Well, before we go, just one final piece of business. We got to show you the final championship results, pending any post-race penalties, of course. We'll start with GTP. I almost called it LMP1. You could tell what year it is in my head. GTP, Luca Filippi wins it over Jaroslav Sindelar with Erkma in third place. That's Billy Octane in P3 there. 405 points for Lucas Filippi. Good enough to get the championship win. Ryan Leach, Daly, your top 5. Lepp, Lindner, Christek, Suranek, Dressel, Broshek, Parrott, Fernandez, Carroll, Roscom, William, and Den. your 17 places in the GTP Championship. Our congratulations to Luca Filippi. We just talked to him, but here it is. Peter Roche, your winner in LMP2 over Justin Dijkstra and Benjamin Heilman, 115 to 7 or 378 is the difference between the championship top. And Tom Bryant, Ted Edwards rounds out your top 5. Behind them, Hyla, Kemp Prager, Sundstrom, Donaldson, Huell, and Leidner, your 11 LMP cars. GTD, the final category. Zorian Janjic wins it. I don't believe Janjic was in the race today. Didn't matter unless this is hold on, let me make sure I'm reading the right. That is correct here. Yep, Zorian Janjic wins it over Yannick Ruoff by a few championship points, and that's 353 to 4 or 346. Getting all confused up here. Zorian Janjic wins it over Ruoff with Bart Macha in third. Christopher Rowe, who let us know their feelings in chat about their strategy today. Rowe, thank you very much for letting us know how your race went for you in the chat. Daniel Merchant rounds out the top 5. Behind them, Dominicus, Mead, Wolf, Anderson, Dolzal, Watts, Boss, Gutman, Jenkins, and Miller, the 15 GTD cars. Before we go, just a big thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. AK Esports Driver 61, Fanatec, digitalmotorsport.com, and Go Setups. You can find out more about all of the partners that support us in the description. And you know what we say, support those that support us. Before we go, Justin and Stewie, I didn't give you an opportunity, and I will now. Anybody you guys want to shout out before we go?
I guess Hyla, he raced with me. Yeah, for a couple of the races, we did the preparation together to see if we had to fuel save or not. So yeah, it was a shame he couldn't join the last few races, but yeah, when he did, it was very fun.
I'm just gonna shout out you guys for doing the broadcast for this champ.
Well, thank you both very much, and thanks for participating. Of course, a big thank you to all of our drivers that have made this series and this season an absolute mega success. We have never had more interviews. We've never had more engagement from the actual drivers here as far as our broadcast is concerned, and that's very heartwarming to us for the drivers to want to be involved. Chat was going absolutely crazy at different points during the championships, cheering on their friends, their teammates, and just watching some fantastic racing on top of that. Les, you were only here with me for 1 week, but you've seen the majority of the series. What are your takeaways here?
What are my takeaways? Well, I've got to be honest. I'm mega impressed with the strength of the field. I must say the racing was very close at time. Well, a majority of the time. Certainly in tonight's race as well. Proved that even with mixed conditions, we had lots going on. There's lots to take away from this, and I'm sure the great event managers that we have, they put on a great series now. This can only get better. The only way is up, as they say. But no, it's been great participation. I look forward to season 2 whenever that may come, and I look forward to seeing some more numbers hopefully. But yeah, guys, if you're thinking about joining this series, get involved. Use up that Thursday night to really get involved in what is a great series and a great community. And yeah, I look forward to what season 2 brings.
Well, there you go. Season 2, not on the horizon as of yet, but I can almost guarantee that there's no way Tom Bryan is going to let this go on one season cliffhanger. Can't wait for announcement for another iRacing championship. This has been a huge success. Other news here at RCI TV, of course, the KTM championship has been pushed back 1 week to allow for more signups, so there will not be a KTM race this coming Friday. World Tour does start this week in the 4 hours of Nürburgring. If you haven't done your pre-queue, if you haven't signed up your team yet, there is still time to get that done in time to race round 1 of that championship night out immediately following round 1 of the World Tour this Saturday as well. Our next broadcast will be both of the Saturday races, but then of course back on Monday as well for the continuation of that championship over there. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Les Stevenson with Ash Bibby behind the cameras. It has been our pleasure to bring you continuing coverage of the iRacing Road Racing Season 1 here at RCI TV. Congratulations to all our winners and champions. We've had a lot of fun bringing this to you, and until next time, have a good night.